If you had asked me a year ago if I trusted my fiancé, I would have laughed at you. Not because I didn't trust him, because the question would have felt ridiculous. Ethan and I were that couple, the one our friends rolled their eyes at in a loving way. We'd been together 4 years, engaged for 8 months, living in a 2-bedroom townhouse in a quiet suburb outside Denver. We had a dog, a joint savings account, and a wedding Pinterest board that I'd stopped pretending wasn't mostly mine. He worked in commercial real estate downtown. I was a dental hygienist with steady hours and a life that felt predictable in the best way. We cooked dinner together most nights, we binge-watched shows on the couch, we fought about stupid things like whose turn it was to buy paper towels. Normal, solid, safe. That's why the day I followed him felt insane even to me. It started small. It always does. He'd been coming home later for about 3 weeks. Not crazy late, not suspiciously late, just later. Instead of 5:45, it was 6:30, then 7. He blamed quarter-end numbers and a new client acquisition. I believed him. Real estate is competitive. I'd seen him stressed before. But something shifted in him. Not in a dramatic way, in tiny fractures. He started taking calls outside, said the reception was better on the patio. He angled his phone away when he texted. Once, when I walked into the kitchen while he was messaging someone, he locked his screen so fast he almost dropped it. I remember standing there holding a grocery bag, telling myself not to be that woman, not to spiral, not to become suspicious over nothing. Still, something in my chest felt tight. One Thursday afternoon, I got off work early because a patient canceled. It was 3:15. I sat in my car in the clinic parking lot and stared at my steering wheel for a long time. Ethan usually left his office around 5. The thought hit me so suddenly it made my stomach flip. What if I just drove downtown? Not to confront him, not to accuse him, just to see. I don't even know what I expected. Maybe I thought I'd catch him leaving with some 22-year-old intern. Maybe I thought I'd see nothing and feel stupid and relieved. I told myself I was being proactive, that engaged couples shouldn't have secrets. That's how I justified turning the key in the ignition. The drive into the city felt longer than usual. Traffic was thick. My hands were sweating against the steering wheel. I kept rehearsing possible outcomes in my head. If he walked out alone, I'd laugh at myself. If he walked out with someone, I'd take a picture. I didn't know why. Proof, maybe. For what? I wasn't sure. I parked half a block away from his building, feeling like I was in some low-budget detective movie. His office was in a glass high-rise near Union Station. Clean lines, corporate, respectable. At 5:12 p.m., I saw him. He walked out of the lobby, phone to his ear, suit jacket slung over his shoulder. My heart jumped so hard it almost hurt. He looked normal, tired, focused. He ended the call, checked his phone, and instead of heading toward the parking garage like he always said he did, he turned the opposite direction. He started walking. I told myself maybe he'd parked somewhere else. I waited a few seconds, then pulled out slowly and followed at a distance, pretending to look for parking. He walked 3 blocks, turned left, then right, not toward any garage I knew of. Then he stopped in front of a brick building with a black awning. It wasn't an office. It wasn't a restaurant. It was a residential building. My heart dropped into my stomach. He didn't hesitate. He punched in a code on the keypad and went inside. I just sat there, frozen. Maybe he was meeting a client who lived there. Maybe it was a short-term rental someone was flipping. I kept building explanations, as if stacking sandbags against a flood. 10 minutes passed. 15. He didn't come back out. My chest started to buzz with adrenaline. I parked legally this time, about half a block down, and walked back toward the building. Every step felt like I was walking into something irreversible. The lobby door was locked, but someone exited just as I reached it. I slipped in before it closed, trying to look like I belonged. The lobby was small but nice. Polished concrete floors, a wall of mailboxes, a faint smell of laundry detergent, and something floral. I stared at the directory board. Units 101 through 312. No names, just numbers. I had no idea what I was doing. Then I heard it. Laughter. A woman's laughter echoing faintly down the hallway to the right.
It sounded close, intimate. I followed the sound before my brain could catch up. Halfway down the hallway, a door was cracked open. I could hear voices inside. His voice. My entire body went cold. I know. I just need a little more time, he was saying. The woman responded, softer. I couldn't make out her words. I stepped closer, every nerve in my body screaming at me to stop. Through the narrow opening, I saw him. Not just standing there. He was kneeling, on the living room floor, in front of a little girl. She couldn't have been older than 5. Blonde curls, pink leggings. She was holding a stuffed unicorn. Ethan was smiling at her in a way I'd never seen before. Soft, protective, familiar. Behind him, on the couch, sat a woman in leggings and an oversized sweater. Early 30s, pretty in a quiet way. She looked exhausted and comfortable, like she belonged there, like he did too. The little girl giggled and lodged herself at him. He caught her easily, lifting her into his arms. She wrapped her legs around his waist like she'd done it 1,000 times before. "Daddy," she squealed. The word hit me like a car crash. "Daddy." I think I actually swayed on my feet. Ethan laughed. "Hey, Peanut. I missed you. Missed you. Not nice to meet you. Not Uncle. Daddy." My brain couldn't process what I was seeing. The man I shared a bed with. The man who proposed to me in front of my family last Christmas. The man who swore he wanted kids someday after we were more stable. He had a kid. A whole child. And judging by the way that woman looked at him, this wasn't some distant secret. This was routine. This was a life. The woman stood up and walked toward them. She kissed him on the cheek casually. Not passionate. Not new. Familiar. "You're late," she said. "Traffic was a nightmare," he replied. The normalcy of it made my skin crawl. I must have made a sound because the door creaked slightly under my weight. The woman's head snapped toward the hallway. Her eyes met. For half a second, we just stared at each other. Then Ethan turned. When he saw me, it was like watching a man's entire world implode in real time. His face drained of color. The smile fell away. The little girl was still clinging to him, oblivious. "Lily," he said. My name sounded foreign in his mouth. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The woman looked between us, confusion morphing into something sharper. Recognition, maybe. "You know her?" she asked. Silence stretched so tight it felt like it might snap. I finally found my voice, though it barely sounded like mine. "Who is she?" I asked. But I wasn't looking at the woman. I was looking at him, at the man I thought I knew. And for the first time in 4 years, I realized I had absolutely no idea who I was engaged to. For a few seconds, no one moved.
Ethan was still holding the little girl, his little girl, and she had her arms looped around his neck, her face buried against his shoulder. She didn't understand the tension in the air. She didn't see the way my entire body had gone rigid. The woman stepped fully into the doorway now, placing herself slightly in front of the child, like instinct kicked in automatically. "Ethan," she said, her voice sharp but controlled. "Who is she?" I almost laughed at that. Who is she? Like I was the intruder, like I was the secret. Ethan gently set the little girl down. "Peanut, go grab your coloring book, okay?" he said softly. She frowned. "But you just got here." "I know, just for a minute." She looked at me curiously as she walked past, completely unaware that her existence had just detonated my life. The moment she disappeared into what I assumed was a bedroom, Ethan stepped into the hallway and pulled the door mostly shut behind him. Not all the way, just enough to muffle us. "Lily," he started, running a hand through his hair. "I can explain." Of course he could. I stared at him. "Explain what, Ethan? The part where you're a dad, or the part where you forgot to mention it?" The woman's eyes widened slightly. "A dad?" she repeated, looking at him now. "What is she talking about?" His jaw tightened. He looked cornered, like an animal calculating which direction had the least damage. "Can we not do this here?" he muttered. I stepped closer. "Do what? React to the fact that you have a whole child and a... what? A girlfriend? A wife? What is she to you?"
The woman crossed her arms. Excuse me? Her voice wasn't angry yet. It was defensive, guarded. Ethan exhaled sharply. Lily, this is... He hesitated. This is Claire. Claire. The name landed in my chest like it meant something, like it had existed in his world long before I knew it. Claire looked at me again, studying me now. And you are? There it was. The moment. The one where everything becomes real because you have to say it out loud. I'm his fiancé. The word hung in the hallway like smoke. Claire didn't react immediately. It was almost worse that way. She just blinked. His... what? Fiancé, I repeated, my voice steadier than I felt. We're getting married in October. Ethan shut his eyes briefly. Claire turned slowly toward him. You're getting married? He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. It's not like that, he said, which was possibly the stupidest sentence he could have chosen. I actually laughed then, a sharp, broken sound. Not like what? Because from where I'm standing, it looks exactly like that. Claire's face had gone pale now, not shocked in the way I was, more like betrayed. How long? She asked him quietly. He didn't answer. How long, Ethan? She repeated, louder this time. He swallowed. 4 years. The air left my lungs. Claire's hand flew to her mouth. 4 years? She whispered. I stared at her. Wait, how long have you two been... this? She looked at me, and something shifted in her expression. Not hostility, not rivalry. Understanding. 6, she said softly. 6. 6 years. That meant he'd been with her 2 years before me. That meant he started dating me while he was already here, already playing house, already being called daddy. My stomach twisted violently. Claire shook her head slowly, as if she couldn't quite process it. You said you just needed time, she murmured to him. You said you weren't ready for marriage again. Marriage again. My heart stopped. I looked at Ethan. Again? He stared at the floor. Claire's eyes filled with something that looked like humiliation. We were married, she said to me quietly. We separated when Emma was 1. He said he wasn't ready. Said he felt trapped. But he never filed for divorce. Emma, that was her name. My knees actually felt weak. You're still married? I asked him. He didn't deny it. He didn't confirm it either. He just stood there in silence. And somehow that was worse than any lie he could have told. I was going to handle it, he said finally. I just needed things to settle down. Settle down, I repeated. You proposed to me in front of my parents. I know. You put a ring on my finger. I know. You let me book a venue. His voice cracked. I know. Claire let out a short, disbelieving laugh. Wow, she said. Wow. The hallway suddenly felt too small, too tight, like the walls were closing in around the three of us and all our overlapping lies. So what was the plan? I asked him. Marry me and just... what? Keep this as your weekday family? His jaw tightened again. It's not that simple. Then make it simple. Silence. Claire's composure finally cracked. Were you ever going to tell me, she demanded, that you were engaged? He looked at her, guilt written all over his face. I didn't want to lose Emma, he said. That answer sliced through me. Not I didn't want to lose you. Not I was confused. He didn't want to lose his daughter, which meant this, me, was expendable. I felt something inside me shift. Not heartbreak exactly. Something colder, clearer. Does she know? Claire asked him quietly, nodding toward the bedroom. He shook his head. No. Claire let out a long breath and leaned against the wall. Unbelievable. I looked between them. So let me get this straight, I said slowly. You're legally married. You have a daughter. And you've been living a completely separate life with me for 4 years. Yes, Claire answered before he could. The bluntness of it was brutal. I felt tears burning behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall in front of him. I would not give him that. Why? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He finally looked at me directly, and for the first time since I'd known him, I saw fear. I love you, he said. I shook my head immediately. No, you don't get to say that. I do, he insisted, stepping closer. Lily, what we have is real. This, he gestured weakly toward the apartment, toward the closed bedroom door. This has been complicated for years. I didn't know how to fix it. So you built a second life, I shot back. Claire pushed off the wall. You told me you were working late to rebuild trust, she said bitterly. You said you were trying to prove you could be consistent. He looked wrecked now, sweaty, trapped. Emma's small voice drifted down the hallway. Daddy. The three of us rose. She appeared again, coloring book in hand. Why are you yelling? Claire immediately softened. Hey baby, it's okay. Grown-up stuff. Emma looked at me again, tilting her head. Who's that? I felt like I was staring at a mirror of innocence I'd never get back. Before either adult could answer, Emma grinned suddenly. Are you Daddy's friend? The word stabbed deeper than it should have. I couldn't speak. Ethan walked toward her slowly. Emma, go back to your room for a minute, okay? But, please. She hesitated, then shuffled back reluctantly. As soon as she disappeared again, Claire turned to me. I didn't know, she said firmly. About you. I believed her. There was no smugness, no territorial claim. Just a woman whose world had just cracked open in a different way than mine. I didn't know about you either, I replied. Ethan looked between them like he was losing control of something he'd carefully balanced for years. You've been sleeping at our townhouse, I said quietly. Planning a honeymoon. Talking about kids.
Claire flinched at that. He looked like he might cry. Lily, please, let's go somewhere and talk. I stared at him for a long moment. Then I glanced at the door behind him, at the apartment that held his real life. And I realized something horrifying. I wasn't the other woman. I was the escape. And suddenly, that hurt even more. I don't remember leaving the building. One second I was standing in that hallway with the smell of laundry detergent and someone else's life wrapped around me. And the next I was outside on the sidewalk, the cold Denver air hitting my face like I'd just surfaced from underwater. Ethan followed me out, of course he did. Lily, wait, he called, jogging to catch up. I didn't stop walking. The city felt too loud. Car horns, the light rails screeching somewhere in the distance, people laughing outside a bar like the world wasn't collapsing in on itself. Lily, please. I spun around so fast he almost ran into me. Don't, I said. My voice wasn't loud, but it was sharp enough to cut. Don't say my name like you didn't just destroy it. He looked wrecked, tie loosened, hair falling into his eyes. If I didn't know better, I think he was the victim here. I was going to tell you, he said. When? I shot back. After the wedding? Before or after we sent out thank you cards? He flinched. I didn't think it would go this far, he muttered. I actually laughed at that. You proposed. I know. You got down on one knee in front of my parents. I know. So don't stand there and act like this just happened. He ran both hands over his face like he was trying to wipe the situation away. I didn't plan for it to overlap like this. Overlap. Like we were meetings on a calendar. Do you hear yourself? I asked quietly. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. I love you. I do. What we have isn't fake. I stared at him, really stared at him, and something ugly crawled up my spine. You don't love me, I said. You love how I make you feel. His jaw tightened. With me, you get to be the guy who isn't a disappointment, I continued. You get a clean slate. No crying toddler, no history, no unfinished divorce papers. It's not like that, he insisted. Then tell me what it's like. He opened his mouth. Nothing came out, because the truth was ugly, and we both knew it. You told her you weren't ready for marriage again, I said slowly, while you were planning one with me. I was going to file, he said. I just needed Claire to be stable first. She seems pretty stable. That's not what I meant. I shook my head. You've been lying to both of us for years. I was trying to figure things out. By sleeping in 2 different beds? His silence was answer enough. I felt my chest tighten again, but this time it wasn't panic. It was clarity. A sick, nauseating clarity. Does anyone else know? I asked. He looked confused. Know what? That you're living a double life? Your parents? Your friends? He hesitated. My mom knows about Claire, he said slowly. And about me? Another pause. She thinks we broke up. Of course she did. A bitter taste filled my mouth.
So I'm the secret. No. Yes, I cut him off. I'm the one you tucked away neatly in a separate box. That's not fair. Fair? I repeated. You're legally married. It's just paperwork. Marriage is not just paperwork. He stepped closer again, lowering his voice like he could contain this with volume control. I never stopped caring about Claire as Emma's mom, but I'm not in love with her. The words hung there. Are you sure? I asked. He didn't answer fast enough. And that was enough. A black SUV pulled up to the curb, music thumping from inside. A couple got out laughing, wrapped around each other. I felt like I was watching a different species, people who didn't have entire secret families hiding 3 blocks away. I need to ask you something, I said. Okay. When you're with me, do you ever think about them? His eyes flickered. That was my answer. You do. It's complicated, he said again, like that word could save him. No, Ethan. It's selfish. He looked wounded. Actually wounded. You think this has been easy for me? He asked. The audacity almost knocked the air out of me. Easy? I whispered. You had both of us. I had pressure from both sides, he snapped. Poor you. I stepped back, creating space between us. Physical space. Emotional space. The kind that should have existed years ago. Why didn't you just divorce her? I asked. He exhaled slowly. Because once it's final, there's no going back. The honesty of that sentence hit harder than anything else he'd said. No going back. So you kept her in reach, I said quietly, just in case. He didn't deny it. And me? I asked. What was I? He swallowed. You were hope. Hope. I almost crumpled right there on the sidewalk. Hope for what? A redo? A version of himself that didn't feel like a failure? You were everything I thought I wanted, he continued. Stability. Calm. A future that wasn't already messy. And she was what? I pressed. He looked toward the building behind us. History. The word felt heavier than hope. History wins more often than people like to admit. I wrapped my arms around myself because suddenly I felt exposed, raw, like my skin had been peeled back. Does Emma think you live here? I asked. He hesitated. She knows I don't sleep here every night, but she thinks she's her dad. I am her dad. And you disappear half the week. I travel for work. I stared at him. She's 5, I said softly. His face tightened. You're going to break her too, I added. Don't, he warned. Don't what? Say it out loud? His phone buzzed in his pocket. We both looked down instinctively. Claire. Her name lit up the screen. The sight of it made something snap inside me. Answer it, I said. He declined the call. Answer it, I repeated. I'll talk to her in a minute. No, I said firmly. You'll talk to her now, because I'm done being the secret you deal with later. He looked torn for a split second. Then he stepped a few feet away and answered. I could still hear him. Hey, he said quietly. A pause. No, she's still here. Another pause. His shoulders slumped. I know. I watched him as he listened, nodding slightly, rubbing his forehead like the weight of his own decisions was finally settling in. I'll come back up, he said. Up. Back up. To them. When he ended the call, he didn't look at me right away. She wants to talk, he said. Of course she does. He hesitated. Come upstairs. The suggestion felt insane. Why? I asked. So we can figure this out. All 3 of us. Like some twisted group project. I looked past him at the building entrance. I imagined walking back into that apartment, sitting across from the woman who had every legal claim to him, hearing a child call him daddy while I tried to process that I'd almost married a man who already had vows he never finished breaking. I don't need to figure anything out, I said quietly. His head snapped up. What does that mean? It means you already made your choice years ago. That's not true, I insisted. You chose not to leave. You chose not to tell me. You chose to live like this. He looked desperate now. I can fix this. How? I'll file tomorrow. For who? I asked. He froze. There it was again. That split-second hesitation.
That internal calculation. And in that silence, I finally understood something that hurt more than the lies. He didn't know which life he wanted. He just knew he didn't want to lose either. And I refused to compete with a child and 6 years of history for a man who couldn't even decide. I'm going home, I said. He stepped forward quickly. Lily, please, don't walk away like this. Like what? Like it's over. I held his gaze. It is. For the first time since I'd met him, I saw real panic flash across his face. And for the first time in 4 years, I chose myself. I turned and walked toward my car. He didn't follow this time. The drive back to the townhouse felt unreal. I don't remember most of it. I know I stopped at a red light on Colfax and stared straight ahead while someone behind me honked because it had turned green. I know I pulled into our driveway and just sat there, engine running, hands on the steering wheel. Like if I didn't move, none of it would be real. The house looked the same. The porch light was on. The dog's shadow moved past the front window when he heard my car. The wind chime by the door clinked softly in the evening breeze. Normal. That was the worst part. Everything looked normal. I walked inside and the dog, Milo, ran to me, tail wagging, nails clicking against the hardwood floor. I dropped to my knees automatically and buried my face in his fur. I know, I whispered into his neck, even though he had no idea what I was saying. I know. The house smelled like the lemon cleaner I'd used that morning. His jacket was hanging on the hook by the door. His shoes were lined up neatly underneath. I stood there for a long time, just looking around. 4 years. 4 years of shared groceries, shared bills, shared mornings. His coffee mug was still in the sink from this morning, the one that said "World's Okayest Golfer." I walked into the kitchen and leaned against the counter, trying to steady my breathing. I expected to feel hysterical, screaming, crying. Instead, I felt hollow. My phone buzzed. Ethan. I stared at the screen until it stopped. It buzzed again, and again. I flipped it over and let it vibrate against the granite. My eyes drifted to the fridge. Save the date samples were held up with magnets. A handwritten list of potential venues. A photo from Christmas. Me, him, my parents, all smiling like we were already a family. I pulled the photo down. I looked at his face in it. I tried to find the lie, to see if there had been a crack I missed. There wasn't. He looked exactly like the man who'd knelt in that apartment hours ago and let a little girl call him daddy. My stomach twisted. I walked upstairs slowly, each step heavy. Our bedroom door was slightly open. The bed was unmade from this morning, his pillow indented where his head had been. I stepped inside and stood at the foot of the bed. How many nights had he texted her from here? How many times had he kissed me goodnight after leaving that apartment? The thought made my skin crawl. My phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't him. It was an unknown number. I hesitated. Then I answered. Hello? Silence for a second. Then a woman's voice. Soft. Familiar. Hi. It's Claire. Of course it was. My heart started pounding again, but not in the chaotic way from earlier. This felt different. Quieter. I sat down on the edge of the bed. How did you get my number? I asked. I took it from his phone, she said plainly. That sounded about right. There was a long pause between us. Two strangers connected by the same man. I'm not calling to fight, she said. I'm not in the mood to fight. Another pause. He's here, she continued. He's sitting on the couch. He looks like someone just died. I closed my eyes briefly.
I'm sure this is hard for him, I said, unable to keep the edge out of my voice. She didn't defend him. I didn't know about you, she said again. I need you to believe that. I do, I replied quietly, and I meant it. I thought we were trying again, she admitted. Not fully together, but trying. For Emma. Trying. While he was planning a wedding with me. I feel stupid, she whispered. The vulnerability in her voice caught me off guard. Me too, I said. Silence again. I asked him who he was going to choose, she said finally. My chest tightened. And? He said he needed time. I let out a slow breath. Of course he did. I told him that if he needs time, then he doesn't choose either of us, she added. That surprised me. I hadn't expected strength from her. I'd expected desperation. What are you going to do? I asked. I don't know, she admitted. But I won't let my daughter grow up thinking this is normal. That sentence settled somewhere deep inside me. Neither would I. We stayed on the phone a few more minutes. Not bonding. Not becoming friends. Just existing in the same wreckage. Before she hung up, she said something that stayed with me. He doesn't know how to be alone. After we ended the call, I sat in the quiet bedroom and let that sink in. He doesn't know how to be alone. That explained everything. The overlap, the delay, the inability to file papers, the proposal that should have never happened. He wasn't choosing between two women. He was avoiding himself. My phone buzzed again. Ethan. I let it ring once, twice. Then I answered. What? I said flatly. Please don't do this over the phone, he said immediately. There's nothing to do. There's everything to do, he insisted. We can fix this. How? I'll file for divorce tomorrow. And then what? I asked. You move in full-time and pretend the last 4 years were a mistake. No, he said quickly. You weren't a mistake. Then what was she? He went quiet. That was all I needed. I can't trust you, I said. Even if you filed tomorrow, even if you begged, I would always wonder who else you're not telling me about. There is no one else. There wasn't supposed to be anyone else in the first place. He exhaled shakily. I love you. The words felt empty now. Overused. Misplaced. You love not being alone, I replied. That's not fair. Neither is being engaged to a married man. Silence. I never meant to hurt you, he said. I know, I answered. That's the problem. You didn't mean not to either. Another long pause. So that's it? He asked. I looked around the bedroom, at the dresser we'd picked out together, at the closet filled with his suits and my dresses. Yes, I said. His breathing hitched slightly, like he hadn't expected that answer. You're really walking away. You should have done that years ago, I replied. I hung up before he could say anything else. For a while I just sat there. Then something shifted. Not dramatically, not in a movie scene way. Just a quiet decision. I stood up and walked to the closet. I pulled his suits off the hangers one by one. His shoes, his watch box, the spare phone charger he kept on his nightstand. I carried everything downstairs and placed it neatly by the front door. Not thrown, not destroyed, just removed. The house felt different already. Lighter, still painful, still raw, but mine. When my phone buzzed again, I didn't check it. I opened the front door, stepped outside into the cool night air, and turned off the porch light. Inside, Milo curled up on the couch, and I sat beside him, staring into the dim living room that no longer felt like a shared future. It felt like the beginning of something else.
But at least it was honest. And for the first time since I'd followed him that afternoon, I could breathe.